Good evening and welcome to this edition of History Highballs as part of the North Carolina Museum of History's History at Home initiative. We're so glad that you're joining us for this evening's program, Montfort Hall, Past, Present, and Future. My name is Stacy and I handle adult education over at the museum, so whenever you sign up for one of these History Highballs programs, you and I will virtually get to hang out and hear some incredible stories about our state and the amazing people that make it. Tonight's program is just one of many exciting digital offerings available through MOH. So if you'd like to learn more about our History at Home initiative, head over to the museum's website at www.ncmuseumofhistory.org. We would like to take this opportunity to thank our North Carolina Museum of History Associates and Foundation for making tonight's program happen. Our associates and foundation provide crucial funding and support to the museum, which, in addition to many other things, helps make programming like this evening's event possible. We would also like to thank those of you who graciously donated funds towards this evening's event. We endeavor to keep our programming free to attend, but there are costs associated with keeping these series going, and we continue to be humbled by your support of the museum and its programming. So we just wanted to say thank you so much. If you haven't already used the link in your Eventbrite email to check out the tutorial for this evening's specially themed cocktail, the Montfort Mango Lemonade, with guest bartender Zenon Nunez, we invite you to head over to the museum's YouTube channel and check it out. We would also like to thank Mingle Bars for coming up with this craft cocktail for this evening's program. A quick housekeeping tip for this evening. We ask that you please keep your mics muted throughout the entirety of the program, and that if you have any questions for the speakers, type them into the chat function located at the center bottom of your screen. At the end of the talk, I will ask the speakers as many of your questions as time allows. Now it is my pleasure to introduce this evening's speakers, husband and wife team, Sarah and Jeff Shepard, who are the visionaries behind the plan to make Montfort Hall an anchor in the local community. They have always had a passion to open their own meaningful business in downtown Raleigh, combining their creative passions with community. After walking by the property every day for almost a decade, they are now in the process of making their dreams a reality. Sarah and Jeff have every intention of making Montfort Hall a thoughtful, inclusive space for their beloved neighborhood and city. But no, they have never renovated a historic house before. They have lived in the Boylan Heights neighborhood for almost 10 years and just welcomed their first baby this March. Sarah and Jeff, I'm going to turn it over to you guys. Welcome.
Thank you.
Oh. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for that, Stacy.
Okay, which one?
We're really excited. You will share that one. Yes, there you go. Sorry, we're gonna hopefully get through all the technical difficulties as quickly and easily as possible. Yeah, so hit share. I think so. All right, hold on one second. Already out to a good start. Try this. Okay. No, almost. Let's try this again. Do they have a portion of the screen?
No screen sharing. Which one of these?
All right. This will be, I will do it. I can't see the mouse over there. Sorry about this.
I can't see it anyway.
All right. Well, you guys can't see that, right?
Stacy.
Stacy.
So we can see a portion of your screen and a portion of the photograph.
Okay.
So that. Okay.
Now we're back to just you guys.
All right. Here, Sarah, can you navigate back to the Zoom meeting? All right. I promise we did rehearse this at one point.
Like many times.
So why is it not letting us pick?
I press play, it goes over there though.
So can you see it now?
Yes, we can see your whole PowerPoint. So
Okay.
yeah.
And then when I hit play, you can't, what can you see now?
Current slide 1 of 40, and then a smaller next slide.
All right. Memento. How do you hide the presenter's notes? And then we can deal with that.
Just go back to screen share.
Okay. one more second.
That's A-okay.
That's, yeah. So
Share, and then hit play. Did
Yeah.
we do it this time?
Beautiful. That looks
Yay.
All
perfect.
right, we did it.
Nice job.
We both have worked in tech for so long. Okay.
Yeah, so without further ado, we will introduce you to Montfort Hall, the past, present, and future. We are super appreciative of the Museum of History for inviting us. We appreciate the cocktail that was concocted for Montfort. Unfortunately, we do not have vodka at this house, so we made gin and tonics. So we are, we do have a modified highball, I guess you could say. But yeah, we're very appreciative of the opportunity to speak to you all.
So I know Stacy already said a little bit about us, but we have been married since 2016. We just welcomed a little girl. She's about 4.5 months. So if I have to leave, that is why. But Jeff is going to tell us a little bit more about us. Yeah,
so just a little bit about us. I actually work in video games at a company called Amanji Studios. We made a game called Temple Run. It's pretty well known. Hopefully some of you have played it. If you haven't, check it out. But Sarah has been working on Montfort full-time for over a year now, is that right? And really, prior to that, she was working at Citrix in downtown. And that's kind of how all of this got started. So we live in the Boylan Heights neighborhood, which is where Montfort Hall resides. We live on the opposite side, but Sarah used to always walk to work to Citrix and would pass by Montfort Hall. And I think like so many of the people who live in this neighborhood or have gone through this neighborhood on Boylan Avenue have seen the house, and a lot of, it's a really mesmerizing place. And so I think, Sarah, do you want to take it from there?
Yeah, I think, like Jeff said, I was just completely mesmerized. And I've always wanted to start my own business. And it was almost like the house, I wasn't always sure what that business was. I had lots of ideas, but the house kind of spoke to me. And I obviously got Jeff on board and wrote a business plan and did a lot of research and sought mentorship. And it took a long time, a couple of years before we were finally under contract in spring of 2018. So once we went under contract, it took us about 8 months to rezone the property. So it was actually residentially zoned. And so we had to go through the long process of trying to get it zoned commercial. We could have kept it residential and had it as a bed and breakfast with only 5 bedrooms. That's kind of the limit. There's lots of different rules in different states about zoning and bedrooms for hotels and things like that. But in North Carolina, if you have more than 5, it has to be commercial. So we wanted to rezone it, and we wanted to have events there. So we did that, and we got it rezoned, thankfully. Lots of support from the community. And it was a really big milestone for us. And since then, we have been under renovations since about spring 2018.
Yep.
Okay. So we wanted to start off by thanking this man. His name is William Bushong. He's since passed away in 2016, but in the late 1970s, he wrote 2 things: a thesis about Montfort Hall, the Boylans, and the architect named William Percival. And then he actually wrote another thesis type thing just on the architect, William Percival. So everything we know about the history of the house, the architect, is all thanks to William Bushong writing this. So everything we're sharing, we basically got from this. There are some things that we got other places, but mainly from him. And it's actually really interesting. He went on to become the chief historian at the White House Historical Association. So, and the reason he's kind of connected to North Carolina is because he did his master's at App State, which is where he wrote these theses. I don't think you can get, I've tried to find it, but you can't get the thesis on the left online, but the one on the right, called William Percival, an English architect in the Old North State, you can get that and read it for free on jstore.org. That's JSTOR. It's really interesting about him. He's we're going to share other things that he is responsible for in North Carolina. But if you're really into architecture, it's a really interesting read.
Yeah, so I don't know if any of you recognize this map right here. It's something that we found really interesting in our research, and it's something that you can actually see around town in a lot of local businesses. This is a map of Raleigh in 1872, which is pretty crazy to see just how much our beloved Raleigh has grown since 1872. But what was really interesting to us is if you actually zoom in on the bottom portion of it, you can actually see Montfort Hall there. And this was something that was really cool to us, in particular because on the back of it, you can actually see there's a second cupola, which we'll talk about the cupola a little bit more later. But we actually didn't know about it until we saw this, and then we confirmed it when we were going through some of the renovations. So it's really interesting to see how old drawings like this, and then there's also a series of maps called the Sanborn maps that also have similar information about the plots and all of that. And it's just really interesting historical data on the location and the kind of the history of the city. You can see more of downtown through those.
Yeah, if you've ever looked at it in certain places, like all the streets are the same. It's really interesting to look at all the buildings that are still there. So yeah, you can find it online as well.
Yeah, so I guess we can start about the history of the house. Well, on the front of the house, you can see a plaque that names the house Montfort Hall. It was commissioned in 1858 by William Montfort Boylan, and it was like Sarah said, it was I guess architected by William Percival, and I'm going to go ahead and apologize. There are a lot of Williams associated with this, so I might misspeak at some point.
But William Percival was British.
Yes, William Percival was British, and really there's only about 3 years that we know about, well, a little bit more than 3 years, but not much that we know because he was only in the States for a little bit of time. The actual architecture of the house, it is called Italianate. It is an Italianate style mansion. It's similar to a Victorian style with some slight derivations, but it was derived from medieval Italian villas and farmhouses. It was actually completed in 1860, so 2 years to construct it, and it was actually constructed outside of downtown. It was not a part of downtown, and it was constructed on the highest hill that was outside of downtown on the land that William Montfort Boylan inherited, or I guess not inherited, was gifted by his father. It is one of the few remaining pre-Civil War houses in Raleigh. It is one of the few structures that still stands that was related to the architect William Percival. I think I mentioned there's a plaque on the front of the house that is actually the plaque that represents that it's on the National Register of Historic Places, and it's a Raleigh historic landmark. I do really want to emphasize a point to everybody that it's really important for us when we're talking about the history of Montfort Hall that we tell the full story of Montfort Hall to the best of our ability, regardless of how misaligned the past views or the history used to be, and what our views are currently. Throughout its construction from 1858 to 1860, and probably a few years after that until until emancipation, the builders Briggs and Dodd and the owner William Montfort Boylan himself, they owned and employed slave labor for the construction and operation of Montfort Hall. Unfortunately, the information that we have currently about those individuals is through the thesis. We are trying to do our best to do more research because really we know it's our job as the current owners of this place to continue to explore and share Montfort's history because we're trying to make it to be a place of inclusion today and in the future. Did you?
Yeah, and I will definitely share more too about what we're going to do as a business moving forward on our social media and our website and things we're going to do. But we wanted to make sure we said that today. And there's the plaque that.
Yeah, there's the plaque that I was mentioning. So What you'll see in the bottom two pictures is actually the cornerstone of Montfort. So the cornerstone is what was originally laid down as a reference point to all of the architectural details that were to be built. So it was really a reference point for where everything was going to go on that plot of land. It's really hard to see, but it does still exist there today. It labels who the house was built for, W.M. Boylan, that's on the right. It says when it was originally constructed, or when the construction began. It specifies the builders, Briggs and Dodd, as well as the architect, William Percival. Like we mentioned, William Percival actually, there's not a ton known about him, despite the fact that there's an entire, not thesis, but dissertation or whatever you will, on him as an architect. And really what's not known about him is what happened beyond his time spent in Virginia and North Carolina. But really a lot of what we were reading was suggesting that he had a major influence on kind of the modern architecture of the time back in 1858. So it's a really interesting read if you are interested in looking at that thesis. So something that I find interesting about, that we should probably go into about William Montfort Boylan and his father, William Boylan, again, confusing, is kind of how the whole plot of land came about to be. So William Boylan, the senior, the father, was really a well-respected man in Raleigh. He ran the Raleigh Minerva, or he was the editor of the Raleigh Minerva. He was newspaper, yes. He was very heavily involved in land transactions as well as the railroad being built in Raleigh. And then by and large, William Montfort Boylan was not known for anything related to his business acumen or his, his desire to be successful. And that actually ultimately ended to be what was the rift between him and his father. So his father gave him the plot of land that is now Boylan Heights. And the whole neighborhood, yes. And his father, that was kind of like set in motion to make him kind of the heir to the Boylan estate. And then all that's known really is that didn't end up happening. The estate ended up going to his siblings, and all he pretty much ended up with was what was relatively a small portion of the fortune. But by and large, William Montfort Boylan was, what would you say? What would you say he is?
He was a party boy.
He was a party boy. It's said about him that he loved to entertain
and hunt.
And that's something that we will be referencing as we go through the construction of Montfort Hall, because really what is so impressive about the work that William Percival did was he did an amazing job of laying out the structure of Montfort Hall to be set to entertain. It is a very large building. However, originally there were only 5 bedrooms in it, which sounds like a lot, but when you see the structure, it's actually pretty shocking.
And just one fun fact that Jeff forgot to mention, William Montfort Boylan, or his father, William Boylan, his homestead was actually the Joel Lane house, which if you're familiar with that house, is just a few blocks outside the neighborhood where Montfort sits. So that's interesting.
Yep. Yeah, so what we want to show you is, I see we're already kind of running behind on time, classic. What I want to show you is a lot of photos that we've collected throughout our research on the property, and these right here that you're seeing on the screen are actually some of the oldest photos that are available of the property. This is 1890 through 1895. What you can see is by and large, the house as it stands today is a pretty good indicator of what this structure was back then. That's not to say it hasn't gone through a lot of different changes, but it's really impressive to see that the amount of research that has gone into this has allowed the house to kind of be brought back to what it used to be. The front half of the house is a lot easier to understand, I guess, historically, because it hasn't changed very much, at least on the interior. On the exterior, there was a lot of renovations that were done.
I'll show you pictures and a floor plan so you can understand what those 4 rooms look like.
Yeah, it's had 10 different owners, is that right? So
Mhm.
throughout the years, it's had 10 different owners. In 1913, there was actually a family, the Cavaness family, that did renovations to the home. And by and large, what they did was regarded as pretty destructive of the house and the history of the house, and the architectural significance of the house. However, there was one part of it, which is the floors, which are really beautiful. And I think there's a photo of them in later. But the floors, they did these wood inlaid parquet floors that are really beautiful. And those were considered to be the one nice thing that they did to the house.
So William Montfort Boylan, he vacated the house not till 1904, and it was then sold to the Greater Raleigh Land Company, and they're the ones that started dividing the land up for other houses. I think that happened in 1907. And one fun fact about the neighborhood is that most of the streets in Boylan Heights are named after the Boylan family, and obviously some of the names have been misspelled, like we are on the corner of Boylan and Montford, but the spelling of William Montfort's name was not that. So they've changed over the time, and there's lots of other streets that are named after the family.
Yeah, so I think that's kind of what happens because the Boylan family no longer owned it when it got subdivided and when the streets got put in. It was the Greater Raleigh Land Company, and so there's Montford, there's Kinsey Street was misspelled, McCulloch Street was misspelled. There's a few other ones as well. So just keep an eye out for them as you stroll through the Boylan Heights neighborhood. So what you're seeing here are some drawings that were done, obviously not the original structural drawings of the house, but these were drawings that were done in the 1960s by a student at NC State, actually. And by and large, they're pretty accurate in terms of what the original sketch of the house would have looked like. There are a few additions that are potentially not accurate, but the overall structure and the significance of the house from the exterior is pretty well represented here. As I mentioned, William Montfort was a party boy. We need to come up with a better name for that. But he built the house and wanted the house to be a place for entertaining. It was predominantly a single family home, but like I said, there weren't many bedrooms considering its size. The front 4 rooms are actually these very large 4 grand rooms. You've got a formal sitting room, a formal dining room. There's a library as well as a parlor. You can go to the next one. So yeah, now what you can see here is
These are the original floor plans.
The original floor plans. So like I said, the front half of the house hasn't changed much on both the downstairs and the upstairs. We have done some slight alterations to the upstairs. Is that the north portion? That is the north portion. You're right.
And we'll share our new floor plans later on, but we wanted to show what the original floor plan looked like. And again, like Jeff said, the front 4 rooms really haven't changed. And honestly, we're not changing what they're being used for. In the back half of the house on the first floor, where it says office and bedroom, has changed quite a lot over the years and all the different owners. But the upstairs actually hasn't changed that much either.
Yeah. So after the Greater Raleigh Land Company subdivided the land, they actually sold the lot to the Cavaness family, like I mentioned, and they were the ones that did the regarded horrible renovations to the house. They did not live in the house for a very long time. And it was eventually, so from 1911 to 1918, they owned the house before selling it to the Coburn family. The Coburn family, we actually met with some of the descendants of the Coburn family and some people who actually had spent time at Montfort Hall, which was really nice. They own the house the second longest period of time other than the Boylan family. And they did additional renovations. However, most of the renovations that they did were actually on the exterior of the house. So it was pretty easy to revert them back to the original when a future family got to it. From them, it changed hands a few times prior to the 1953, when the Boylan Heights Baptist Church owned the house. And again, the house went through another makeover, this time being renovated mainly for the purpose of being a utilitarian home to fit a congregation, as well as provide places for Sunday school and offices.
We'll show you what it looked like too.
Well, yeah.
It's just a mini recap.
Exactly. Yeah, so after the church owned it, it went to, well, why don't you take this part?
Okay. Jeff likes to ramble.
I do.
After the church had it, is when the Jadwick family bought it in 1979. And they did, and we'll show pictures of what it looked like then. They did an incredible job renovating it back to what it really originally looked like when it was built. And then they were the previous owners before us. And we got it in 2018. So like I mentioned, these are the original floor plans. Just a couple fun facts before we move on from it. You obviously don't see a kitchen. They didn't have kitchens in the house in the 1850s. And because in case there was a fire. The original kitchen was actually a house behind the property, which still stands today. A wonderful woman lives there now. We've had lots of conversations with her. It's not part of our property, but it's really neat that it's still there. And the warming kitchen was in the basement, which is not on here, but later the kitchen was then built on the first floor where one of the bedrooms is. Oh, and just to point out, the villa was one of the first structures in Raleigh to have gas lighting, indoor plumbing, and a water closet, which the water closet...
the plumbing system was actually sourced. There was a cistern, a copper cistern, which is still in the house today, which we have a picture of. And it actually is what provided the gravity-assisted plumbing system of Montfort. And it was one of the few places that had it at that time.
So I wanted to start with these 4 pictures of the house because we're going to right now talk a little bit about William Percival, the architect, and other buildings in North Carolina that he had a hand in. And particularly the most similar to ours, which is called our sister house, is at the Barracks in Tarboro, North Carolina, which we got to go visit and take pictures and see all the similarities. So the next slide is from the Barracks. So you can see it's a very similar house. It also has a cupola. The woodwork, like Jeff mentioned, the floors and the railings are also very similar to Montfort.
Yeah, what was nice was so the Jadwick family, when they were doing their restoration, they could actually use the Barracks as a good example of what Montfort used to look like. Because unlike Montfort, the Barracks did not go through the extensive number of renovations. So it was still pretty close to the original. Unfortunately, there was a fire at the Barracks. I don't know the date of it. Was in 2016. In 2016,
just
and
the back of the house.
Mm-hmm. And there's a family that's currently living there as a single family home, and they're doing renovations to it. So hopefully they'll be able to get it restored to a current state. Sarah actually got to visit it with our architect to get an understanding of I guess how it compares visually to Montfort.
So we also, this is your slide. I'm just going to take over.
Yeah, she's better at talking than I am. So one of the things that's really cool about William Percival is like we said, the other works that he was doing in the States or in this state, and the references and likeness that he took from some of the things that he worked on and brought to Montfort Hall. So what you're seeing on the left is the Raleigh State Capitol, and that rotunda is not what William Percival designed, but William Percival was in charge of renovations on the Raleigh State Capitol around the time that Montfort was being constructed. And so what you can clearly see is that he took inspiration from the Raleigh State Capitol and incorporated it into both Montfort Hall and the Barracks. Another one of the structures that William Percival fully designed, so unlike the state capitol, was the First Baptist Church, which is still standing today, and you can actually go by and see it, and the spire is still very significant of what you can see today. But all of the things that William Percival was responsible for constructing were all done, like I said, in a very short, concatenated time frame. because he was only here for a certain amount of time, and then he kind of just vanished across, from the face of the earth. They can't even find death certificates on this guy. But there's some other ones that we're going to show you some pictures as well. We're going to show you what's next.
There's one more called the R.S. Tucker House, and that's the last one we'll show you. But there was another church in Tarboro that he was responsible for, a house in Charlotte, and another house in Raleigh called the Harrison Villa, which have all been demolished. But this one, the R.S. Tucker House, was I think a really, really beautiful and interesting house. It was demolished in '68, but the carriage house for it is still standing, and it was renovated. I don't know when, but it is the home of Arts Together now. So I think a lot of people in the neighborhood have kids that go there. So that was designed by William Priscilla.
Did you say where it was located?
Oh, it's right across the street from St. Mary's School on St. Mary's Street.
Yeah.
So not far from Montford.
And we do not have a current picture of it,
No.
but this is what you would see, and it is significantly renovated. But yeah. So what you're seeing now is one of the renovations. This is actually in the early 1950s. So this is after the Cavaniss renovation as well as the Coburn family. Fun little fact about the Coburn family: instead of referring to it as Montfort Hall, they actually called it Coburnsville, which I think is really funny. But yeah, like you can see, it is very drastically different from what the original structure was slated to be. The front porches are much more significant and pronounced. Those giant columns that were put on there, as well as that large addition porch on the left side of the house, viewing it right here. One of the really sad things about the interior of the house is that after the Coburn family had vacated the premise, they actually had vandalism happen within the inside of the house, where some actually pretty experienced burglars were coming in and taking some of the chandeliers off of the ceiling. And so in order to protect the house further, they actually took all of the original marble mantelpieces from Montfort Hall and moved them to Texas.
I don't know if that's where they went initially, but they are now in Texas in the storage unit. But there was only three marble ones. So all the other fireplaces are original except for those three.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the Jadwick family, when they did their restorations, which we will get to soon, they tried to replicate them somewhat in the look and feel of them. So like we mentioned, last year we actually sat down and met with the Coburn family, and they were nice enough to share with us some of the pictures that they have of their family within Montfort Hall and outside of Montfort Hall. And what you can see is it was clearly used as a place for events and family gatherings, weddings clearly here. I do actually love the fact that there's a horse in front of it. The original structure actually likely had a carriage house, which we can't identify where that is, unfortunately, anymore. But I thought it was really neat that they had horses on there. Again, kind of giving to the fact that this house, even back then, was not a part of downtown. It was considered on the outskirts. So this is where you can probably start to get to the point where you will not recognize the house. So this is actually the renovations that were done by the Boylan Heights Baptist Church. And I guess we use the term renovation lightly. And although they do seem very drastic, and like, especially on the interior, like you can see that right photo, that's actually where the rotunda is. They boarded over it and used it as an actual room. But by and large, what they did to the house was actually not considered to be too terrible, until at a later date when we tried to get the white paint that is still on the house off of the house. And unfortunately, after like 20 different attempts at different chemical peels and all types of stuff, the paint is actually, it's a cement-based paint. So unfortunately, our original hope of restoring the brick of the home is not an attainable goal. So it will be painted again because we have to paint on top of that white color. Okay. There you go.
I feel like it's going to take us a long time to get through all these pictures.
Okay.
So this, the top, that's still the church. So that's when Jadwick family got it. So you can see it's still different from when the church first took it. They enclosed even more space in the porches on the front to make more rooms. And all these photos that you see, we kindly got from the state archives. So they have a lot of documentation about historic properties in Raleigh.
One of the things that I think is really interesting about these photos right here is that one on the right. I had mentioned that they had floored over the hole in the rotunda, but that she's actually standing in what is now the window above the front door, which is actually walled in into a room. That room no longer exists on the house. That's the exterior window that is right above the front main door that she is walking through.
And I did already mention this, but they did do an incredible job restoring it back to what it really originally was built as. So that takes us to 2018.
Yeah, so what we wanted to do is show a couple of photos of where the house is when we got it, as well as where we've kind of got it now. So the Jadwick family, they owned it until 2018. Really nobody lived there after 2014. One of the most nerdy features that I love telling people about this house is the brick walls, and this actually contributes to the fact that this house is still standing. The brick walls are 18 to 20 inches thick of brick, so it is just absolutely a solid house. And our house in Boylan Heights, the house we live in, it was built in 1940, and the floors of our house here are nowhere near as flat and straight as the floors are in Montfort Hall. So that really goes to show the amount of architectural detail and structural soundness that really is what is helping this building stand today. One of the other things that's really unique to this house are the details that you'll see throughout. But one thing that the architect really enjoyed doing was using local materials. And so not only would the bricks have been created on site, but the windows are actually made of sandstone that was a locally sourced, like really relatively new when this house was being constructed. And it is beautifully done throughout. It's a stone that's pretty easy to manipulate the shape of and, kind of chisel and carve detail into. Unfortunately, it doesn't stand up to weather that great, but it's still there and it looks good. So like I mentioned earlier, since it was one of the early houses that had the interior plumbing, what you're seeing on the right, that's as good of a picture as you're going to get of the copper cistern. So that would have been filled with water in order to provide the gravity plumbing. And then what you're seeing on the left is a really cool view of the interior dome. So this is actually in the attic, and you're actually able to see the plaster and lath of the dome and how that kind of curvature was constructed and done really well.
So when we got the house, obviously we nerded out on this thesis and learned all about the house. And one of the things that Bashang kept stating in the thesis was the first step in returning Montfort Hall to its original appearance would be stabilizing the roof. It was not in good shape. So that was the first thing that we tackled with our builder, Greg Paul. So these are pictures of the roof before, as well as the chimneys, which on the left are the original chimneys that were not in good shape. And we wanted to keep them and just repair them, but we really couldn't. They were too far gone, so we had to rebuild them. So, and there was a lot of water damage in the house as well because of this. So these are pictures of after. We stabilized the roof and we went with copper, and hopefully we will not have to deal with the roof in our lifetime, or hopefully the next owner. So we're really excited about it. And
it's really sad because it looks so beautiful. However, the house is so tall and it sits on the tallest point of the neighborhood that you really can't see very much of it other than the trim that goes around it.
These are pictures of the eaves. We also did the eaves at the same time, and another picture of the chimneys.
Yeah, so like we mentioned, the interior, there's when you walk in the front door, you're actually met with this like really grand entrance where there's a rotunda above you. It's a circle cutout where you can see all the way up to the cupola where there's stained glass. But something that's really interesting is the detail that's on top of these columns that are here. It's really indicative of the locality of this house, and that it's in North Carolina. But you've got squirrels and birds and acorns, which are pretty unique for something to put on top of these columns. Unfortunately, some of the tails and things are missing, so they don't really look like squirrels and stuff.
They'll be replaced.
We'll work on it. And so on the left, you'll see some of just the details kind of and finishings of the house. And then, so what you're looking at here is what will be the sitting room. And you see there's actually pocket doors that allowed the owner of the house to kind of shut off different areas of the house in order to accommodate different size events or different gatherings that, you know, either needed privacy or didn't need privacy. So again, kind of showing off the fact that the house was built and made to be utilized for events.
So I just wanted to show that, so we just looked at the bottom. Now, if you're looking out through the rotunda, you can see there's like these iron railing now, but it used to be wood that looked much like the original staircase, and we're going to replace that with wood. And these, also I should note that like these pictures with the paint and the wallpaper, that was from the restoration done by the Jadwicks in the 1970s. And that's looking down through the opening and then looking up at the stained glass. And then also just wanted to show some pictures of the main staircase. There's also lots of niches, is that how you say it?
Yep.
Niches throughout the house, which we need to figure out what we're going to put in them. But there's another angle, and I think this is interesting. So on the left, you can see there's an opening that looks like a niche, but it's actually another staircase.
That leads to the back.
Oh, sure. There we go. That leads to the back of the house. And then I just wanted to show some before and afters. This is one of my favorite rooms, and it's going to become one of the bedrooms of a 2-room bridal suite. And so that is it today. And there's another picture of it, or when we got it. And then that's actually just the other day, or maybe today.
That was today.
That was today.
Yes.
They are repairing the plaster. So
Yeah.
It was in a lot of, clearly,
yeah,
needed a lot of repair.
Yeah, and so like we mentioned, the roof was not doing a great job of keeping water out of the house, and water and plaster do not mix well, which ended up causing a lot of damage. But it's really cool to see that the amount of restoration that can happen to bring things back to what they were. So like I mentioned, we did want to get the house back to its original brick state. Unfortunately, that's just not something that's a possibility at the moment. Like I said, the white paint was a cement-based paint. And whenever you tried to take it off, because you could get it off, but when you took it off, it actually took the outer layer of the brick off, which would compromise the integrity of the brick and the waterproofing of the brick. So like we said, unfortunately, it had to stay, but we are currently in the process of painting it. And soon,
You can walk by it this week.
You can probably walk by it this week and actually be able to see the new color that we're going to make it. A little bit of a teaser, but for all the people that were worried, even though I am a UNC guy, we're not painting it Carolina blue. She would not have that.
And we just wanted to make note that we're working with our architecture. They're amazing, and David lives in the neighborhood, and Greg Paul is our builder.
Yep.
So these are some photos of when we first got the house. And on the left is the back porch. And that is today. We've made kind of a new entrance angled towards what will soon be the parking lot. And there'll be a wheelchair lift added in there too. And then in the middle, that's obviously the front entrance with the columns when we first got the house. And that's today. We've are repairing. We have temporary heat and air in there.
No, yeah.
Yeah, so we can dry it out and make sure it stays well ventilated while we're doing all the renovations. And then on the right is the parlor, and that is currently where they're restoring some plaster. Just thought before and afters would be neat. Oh, and I did ask some questions from our Instagram followers, and someone asked if we had found anything neat in the house that was hiding, and we have not yet, unfortunately. Maybe we'll still come upon something neat, but no, not yet.
Yeah, I imagine the number of significant renovations that the house went through probably yielded some cool treasures to previous owners, but so far we have not found anything.
So this is the kitchen before. on the top, and then that's today. So we're making it a commercial kitchen. So still a lot of work to be done. The kind of middle photo is actually from we have an addition on the house, which you'll see in the floor plans in a minute. And that's just the hallway. There's a sun skylight in there, and then on the right is one of the soon-to-be suites. We made the closets a bathroom.
Yeah, so one of the, if any of you have any experience renovating old homes, one of the things that you will experience is that not every room has its own bathroom. And luckily this house had fairly large closets. And so we're doing a little bit of a unique situation where you'll have a shower and a toilet inside where the closet is, and then you'll actually have the sink out.
Just in one room.
Just in this one room. So it's got a little bit of a European vibe to it.
Yeah.
So what you're seeing here is the first of the three floor plans that we're going to share with you. This is the basement. Again, here you can see how thick those walls are. Those are drawn correctly. But what we were hoping to do with this was, in the original plan, we wanted to have a bar downstairs, and we do have the ability through our rezoning to have a bar there. So fingers crossed, one day the downstairs will be able to be that. But until then, it's going to be more of a lounge room. You know, maybe a pool table or something like that. But so that's kind of the significant portion down there.
And then upstairs, and to that point, you can see the parlor is on the top right. We will have a bar in there, which will mainly be for guests, but we're hoping we'll have hours for the community and the neighborhood to come in and enjoy a cocktail just in the space. So there will still be a bar, but not just like a separate area yet. I think we mentioned, I think this is just interesting that we're on the national and local registry for historic places. So we have to go through a lot of people to make changes and do anything in this house on the exterior and the interior. So for interior changes, and so that we can get tax credits for the project, we have to go through an organization called SHPO, which is the State Historic Preservation Office. And then from there it goes to the National Park Service. So they all have to approve everything, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's the other way around.
Our architect's on the call. Maybe she can answer.
Yeah.
And then for exterior changes, we have to get, just like anybody in the neighborhood, they make changes. We have to get certificate
of appropriateness
through our HDC. There's a lot of
layers. Well, I mean, there's a lot of layers of historical protection on the house, which is actually great. There's another one that was a voluntary protection that was put on the house by the Jadwick family through Preservation NC, where they actually put covenants on the house so that Preservation NC can protect the property from a invasive development. The property can't be split up into multiple lots. I believe it's like incredibly hard to or impossible to demolish the house. So that was something that the Jadwick family did that was really smart on their behalf of keeping this house, you know, a piece of Raleigh's history.
And you can see like the front 4 rooms, that's where we'll do a lot of events inside. There's a commercial kitchen. And then the second floor. So this is where there's 2 rooms on the first floor and then the rest are on the second floor. And the addition that we added is over the existing part of the first floor. So we didn't extend the footprint of the house. We just built on top of it. We did then build a stair tower in the back because per fire code, we needed 2 exits. So we have a new stair tower, and then that arrow is showing you where there's a new hallway connecting the 2, so the old house and the new part.
Yeah. Yeah, so that hallway is actually what led to us making this kind of 2-room connected bridal suite, or like kind of the largest suite in the house, because originally where that hallway was the bathroom, and we lost over half of the footprint of that, so we did not have enough room for a bathroom there.
And just to say a fun fact, the house when we got it was about a little over 7,000 square feet, and then when we're done, it'll be almost 10,000. So this is kind of a lot going on, but I just wanted to give you a general idea of our landscaping plan. So we have 1 acre of lot, and we're on the corner, and the house sits really far back in the left corner. So we have a lot of space in the yard for events. So in the bottom right is where we can put a tent and have seated dinners. We'll have a fire pit, some some gardens, and just lots of places to sit and relax and enjoy. And then there's a new parking lot on the top right.
Again, part of the zoning requirements for being a commercial property.
Yeah,
which is
yeah, it's normal. And we want to do a lot of outdoor events for our community, and like yoga, afternoon tea and stuff like that, not just events. So yeah, stay tuned. And then these are just some fun renderings that our architects did. On the top left is the parlor. So we'll have a little custom made bar in there. And then the other two pictures are of the library. We're gonna have new bookcases in there. And then these are just some fun photos. So before we started renovations, we had lots of people reach out that wanted to do photo shoots. And we actually had some that made it in Vogue magazine, which I thought was really neat. And there's a couple more. And then I have an old one, and we are hoping to do more photo shoots once we're open and after restorations are done. So I thought this was really fun. In 1989 or 1990, this was the cover of Southern Bride and Groom magazine. And there's Montfort Hall, the bride. I don't know who she is, but she looks great.
If you're here, hi, thank you.
Yeah. And then I just wanted to share a little tease of what I get a lot of questions on social media about what our interior design is going to be like. Actually, a lot of people email us with like, I have these antique things and don't you want them? Which is so nice. But we are going to make this kind of a modern Victorian feel. You know, the house is so beautiful and the architecture is so beautiful, and we don't want to erase that. We really want to integrate that rawness of the house into modern day. So that's kind of a tease. So I am working with Brian Costello, who is amazing, and we're having a lot of fun picking all the things, so many things for the house. Oh my gosh, we did it. It's 7:52. I was sweating a little bit.
Yeah.
But we're having so much fun. We're tired, but we're having a lot of fun. And you can follow along in the journey, and we're on all the things. If you want to email us, if you're interested in having an event there next year.
Or just interested in more information.
Yeah, just email us. So our goal was always to be done and open around November. We have hit a little bit of a hiccup with something in particular, which is going to push us probably a month or two. So it could be December or even January, but definitely next year.
We also have to, there is a pandemic going on, so we're also kind of aware that could potentially adjust our timeline on when we want to open, or how we want to open, and the types of things we'll be able to do.
And we have not said this anywhere, but we are actually changing the name. So probably in the next few weeks, we are going to announce the new name with our new branding, and so be on the lookout for that.
Cool. We did it, I think.
I think.
So
I'll leave this up.
Yeah. Are there any questions that have been floating around?
Thank you guys. That was awesome. So wonderful. I was geeking out over here. I'm pretty sure that all of our attendees were too. We've got a couple questions. One of the first ones was, how many bathrooms?
So each of the suites will have a bathroom.
So there's 9 suites.
9 suites. So there's 9 bathrooms there. There are 3 bathrooms on the main level, 2 of which are ADA accessible. And then there is a bathroom on the basement level as well. So that brings us to a total of 12. Nice.
Yeah.
Math.
Wow, that's impressive. Awesome.
And there's 10 fireplaces.
Yes.
Oh, wow. That was going to be my personal question. So lots of questions about these mantles that are hanging out in a storage space in Texas. Any plans to get them back, or what's the story with that?
Okay.
So we have reached out to the individual who has them. Right now, we're not sure that it's going to work out in the negotiation phase of getting them. So our plan is to hopefully return something that is similar in kind. Luckily, the thesis does provide us with a pretty good detail of what the original ones looked like. But we're not holding our breath. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Yes, we're not holding our breath for the original ones. And those, it's only three. It's only three.
Yeah.
There's, so it's the parlor, the library, and the sitting room. Those ones are the ones that are not the originals. The one that's in the dining room is original. It's wood. It's beautiful. And then the ones upstairs they're also wood, and they're a little bit more pragmatic, I guess.
Gotcha. Your landscaping looks absolutely beautiful. Your landscaping plans look absolutely beautiful. Who are you working with for your landscaping architects?
So Timmons Group did all the plans, and then my landscaping is going to execute all the site work and the landscaping, and they've been great to work with. We're really excited about the outdoor space.
Yeah, it looks absolutely incredible. Last question, what has been your biggest challenge so far in renovating Montfort Hall?
Can we say like 6 different things?
Of course you can.
I mean, I can.
I'll start with one, I'd say the rezoning probably was the most stressful thing for us, mainly because we've never done something like this before. And specifically, we've never rezoned a building. And I don't know if anybody in the audience has an experience of rezoning buildings, but it is not fun. It is not a fun process.
It's not easily understood either. It's not no harp on the city, but it is really hard if you don't know what you're doing. And we were fortunate enough to have some guidance.
Well, even if you know what you're doing,
yeah.
What we're trying to do, it incorporates a couple of different business models, whereas, the zoning code kind of is like, oh, you're going to be a hotel, or you're going to be a restaurant, or you're going to be a bar. And we're like, well, what if we want to be all of those things? And specifically with the, yeah, exactly. We didn't fit in a perfect space for it. Okay, what's yours?
No, I was going to say rezoning.
Okay.
I don't want to rezone anything ever again, but I'm really glad it worked out. And
having a baby during the planning portion maybe was not I mean, listen, our baby's adorable. I love her to death. But it's tough. And then the pandemic on top of that is.
As with lots of other, that's probably the hardest. We could keep going, but everything else has been.
Yeah, you don't want to hear us just complain.
We're very, very grateful to be doing this, and we're having a lot of fun.
Well, I'm sure that it has been a labor of love, but I just wanted you guys to know the majority of the chat on here is just saying what a wonderful job the two of you are doing and how thankful they are for your passion and your dedication to this project, and what wonderful neighbors you are. And that we are all so excited to see this when it is finished. And thank you for allowing us to join in along the journey as well.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. We had so much fun, and hope everyone enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you everybody who are spending their Thursday evenings with us. This was something I never thought we'd be doing for this, so thanks.
Absolutely. Well, we will look forward to an update when everything is completed. Maybe we can have you guys back and you can show us around, maybe?
Yes,
absolutely.
For sure.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much again. And thank you all for those of you who joined us this evening.
Sure.
Check back next month. We will be having another History and Highballs. And please stay safe and take care. Thank you guys.
Bye.
Bye.